Generations, a show for seniors, people who know seniors, or people who will someday become seniors. I'm David Lapaco. I'll be your host for this episode. And today we have a very special guest who's going to be talking about something that, frankly, anybody could profit from, but especially seniors. And I'll introduce him in a moment, but he's going to be dealing with things that we have to deal with our living space, things that happen in our homes, and how we need to deal with them in order to maximize pleasure and minimize pain. And so let me introduce our two co-hosts. I'll ask each of them if they have a particular matter in their own home that they're thinking about with our guest Nick in mind. Rashida Jenkins, how are you today? And what part of your house are you thinking about?
Well, hello, I am wonderful. Thank you. And the most concerning part of my home is the crawl space and its insulation.
Okay, this time of year, that's a big one. So
Oh,
uh,
yes.
thank you, Rashida. And our other co-host, Mike Rosberg. What part of your house is on your mind at this moment?
Well, for some time, the wiring in my house has been a problem. Uh, I'll try to plug something in and a light bulb will pop or something like that. There's, the wall socket will go dead. And this morning, as I was plugging in one of my lights for the show, I stuck a extension cord into my kitchen socket and it popped and went dead. So I have wiring problems right now, and I'll have to call somebody to get some help.
I kind of think you should, but let's ask our guest, who I will now introduce. Nick Feldewerd is with us today, and Nick has extensive experience dealing with the kinds of issues that we're talking about here and has some other background too and connected to financial planning. But I'll let Nick introduce himself. Nick, tell us a little bit about who you are and why we invited you on this program today.
Hi, Dave. Well, thank you. Thank you for having me on the show. And yeah, my name's Nick Feldewerd, and I grew up, my dad was a contractor. So I had a lot of experience working with him at a very young age. And over the time, I've just it gave me a lot of great opportunity to not only fix up and do these kind of repairs and things on my own home, but also helping out friends and family. And I've really just gained like a key sense of, what to look for. That's the main thing. Like, what are causing the issues? I know Rashida said the insulation in the home. Like, how can you be aware of that without crawling into your attic and actually digging around in there? So I just had a lot of life experience with that and construction background, and it's been very helpful in improving your home and making sure things are going to last for you. So you don't run into a situation like Mike has where all of a sudden light bulbs are blowing out, right?
What would be a likely cause of something like that, dare I ask?
So there could be numerous different things. A lot of times it depends on the age of your home. They have this stuff called Nubin or knob and tube wiring. And just to kind of sum that up is it's a wire that allows so much electricity to go through it before it starts to heat up. Well, the issue with old wiring like that is that those wires start to heat, and then if they're touching other components or as things evolve, you find new ways to install electricity and improve things. So that's where like a lot of issues can happen. Also on that note, there's what's called is a fuse panel box in your house, and those things need to be updated as well. Much longer time period, kind of like the wiring as well. So that's kind of the things that you run into with your wall wiring. For instance, have you guys heard of GFI breakers?
Yes.
Mhm.
Mm-mm.
Ground fault interrupter, you got to know that
Yes.
one.
Circuit
Oh,
breaker.
Right.
Yes.
So if you're playing with water, that's a good one to have because it's not going to
Mhm.
cause other damage throughout your house. If, like in your kitchen, for instance, is a big area for those. But it's always important when it comes to wiring. It's a very dangerous thing that has caused a lot of fires. So you want to make sure you consult if you're noticing anything, kind of like Mike has. He's taken the action to like, okay, there's something wrong here. I need to reach out to an expert, and you need to take that very seriously when it comes to, preventing future fires and just maintaining your home so you're not in a situation that could cause more damage.
Mhm.
Well, there's obviously no one size fits all solution, but I think for a lot of seniors, they get so comfortable in their own space that the idea of moving is just anathema to them. They just can't stand the thought of moving somewhere. And so they'll do whatever they need to in order to stay where they're at. But you must reach sort of a tipping point where the cost of rewiring Mike's house would be X number of dollars. And by any reasonable standard, it would make no sense to stay there on a fixed income, for example, if that's what it will take to stay there. And so how you make that decision of stay with what I've got, or I've got to do something totally new, perhaps even move, is an interesting question. I don't know if you have any thoughts about what that tipping point would be.
Yeah. So, Dave, if I understand you correctly, it's a matter of deciding, well, is my home over the edge to where it's going to cost too much for repairs and it's not really the ideal living situation for my lifestyle now?
Right.
Yeah. So, a recommendation on that is just trying to notice certain things along the way to prevent them from being way outdated and too old, so you can plan and prepare uh, with budgeting aspects of, most people are not going to be like, okay, I'm 65 years old, I'm retired, and I'm going to rebuild my house. But if you're 55 and you notice something little, you can start chipping away at the maintenance and the upgrading of your home so you can fit it to your lifestyle at that time. Sometimes it just makes sense to purchase a new home and sell your old one. So then, all the upgrades, let's say it's super outdated, somebody else can take advantage of that. And then you get to live in something that's more comfortable for your style at that time.
And
There are also other ways that you can go about it. I know, for instance, with like my grandparents, stairs is not a good thing, having stairs in their home. So they grew up on a farm. Well, they don't want to move into a home out off the farm. So some ways of helping them out is try to eliminate using the stairs. So you can move like washers and dryers. They're usually in the basement, move them on the main level. Not a huge cost, not a huge thing, but that can allow you to stay in your home from not having to use those stairs. Otherwise, there's a lot of like safety railings and things that you can put into your home to help assist you in continuing to live there.
So another way to put that might be that you would want to concentrate living on just one floor of your house, even if it has a second floor and a basement, but just try to move all the essential functions to the first floor so you don't have to go up and down stairs. I wonder, has any one of us ever had any problems going downstairs?
Oh, yes, I've fallen down the basement stairs and it
Ooh,
was not a good time.
ooh.
Oh, yes, stairs can be a hassle and a hazard if you're not paying attention, you lose your footing. Maybe even you're carrying something and you're not able to hold on to the railing. So yeah, stairs, you can eliminate them. That's probably best.
My only problem was outside the house on a ladder, and I wound up with a large hematoma in my thigh. Fortunately, the femur did not break, but that was one of those life lessons where I thought I now have reached the point where I probably should not be doing ladder work, going from one level of our roof to another level, especially when the rubberized surface of where the ladder is on is wet, and so it slipped and I went down with the ladder. And fortunately, all I got was a big bloody uh, bruise. But I mean, it could have been a lot worse.
Yeah, when you watch some of these video clip TV shows, humorous video clips, and you see people collapsing on their ladders and all this, you think, ha ha ha. But I suppose you can really hurt yourself badly,
Yeah.
dropping 10 feet onto a metal ladder or something like that.
Yes, you can. I heard Nick say he has a construction background and I do as well. And they always taught us to have someone at the bottom holding the ladder
Uh,
as you go up, especially if you have to extend past 6 feet or more. So
Right.
Rashida, what is your background in this?
I was a construction laborer for 12 years.
Wow, okay.
Commercial labor. Yeah. Yes. Helped build the Viking Stadium, the Twin Stadium, rebuild the Union Depot when they did the reconstruction of that. So,
Uh-huh.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there's on one note too, when it comes to climbing up that ladder, instead of if you feel the need to have to do that, it's really nice now in the industry. A lot of companies offer free consultation. So if there's ever a concern or something, just have it checked out by a professional. At least then you know your situation. Then you
Yes.
can make the best decision moving forward, and you get a little bit of knowledge. You get to learn a little bit from them.
Yeah. So do your best not to do it in the rain, David.
Yes,
This
have
is
money
sweat.
for the
It
ladder.
wasn't raining, it was just wet, that's all, but
Okay.
all you need.
Yeah, I had one experience which was close to that. My house has a roof which is like that, which is fine. My garage is more slanted. And from time to time, I'll go up on top of my garage and take photographs of my garden. So I did that once recently, about a year ago. And I kind of moved towards the center of the roof. And suddenly I had nothing to grab onto. And I just slid down the side of the garage and landed, fortunately, in a garden as opposed to the sidewalk right next to it. But I was lucky on that one. I think, Dave, a little luckier than you were.
Hopefully, you had some soft plants planted there.
Yes, yes, yes.
Now,
No.
Nick, another thing I know that you do or know something quite a bit about, and this time of year we think about it quite a bit, would involve windows because you don't want to let the cold air in. And we tried to do some deferred preventive maintenance many years ago and basically replaced every window in our house, which was kind of spendy, but we thought it was worth it. But what should we know about windows and how to get windows that'll work well in the winter in Minnesota?
Mhm.
Yeah, that is a great question. When it comes to the windows, kind of like you said, they seem to get a little expensive, right? One thing that you want to look for is single pane windows. So a single glass pane is not glass is not an insulator. So if you have single pane windows, you're actually throwing money out the window per se because of your energy costs. Like you're not only just the cost that causes your house to have to heat more, it's putting more stress on that furnace. So over a long time, to save from replacing your furnace, throwing all that money out the window, it's better to make sure you have that energy efficiency, because over a period of time, those windows will pay for themselves. And then you're just helping out everybody, the world, and using less energy. So it's not always an ideal situation for everyone, because it does get expensive. But if you can start to mitigate the most damaged windows first, and maybe you take care of 3 of them, that's going to have a substantial impact on the energy that your furnace is using, and help savor everything for a much longer time.
And when you see things starting to rot in your house, whether it's where the flooring meets the benches or something like this, or outside, along the edges, when is the time to maybe go in there and make a major improvement?
Yeah, that's another very good question, Mike. When it comes to if you notice any leaking, you want to kind of be your own investigator. You want to figure out where the water's kind of coming in, take a look on the inside, the outside, and try to just assess for yourself. Sometimes there are, easy fixes where it might just need an extra update on caulking around the edge where the seams are, because water can get in kind of anywhere. But if you notice it and you can't find the problem to it, I would say it's best to call a professional right away, because it's just going to cause more damage. Because you can imagine water sitting now inside the wood of your home. Now your floors, your walls, the insulation factors can be a huge impact and cause much more damage over time.
Yes.
So another thing with the window and energy efficiency, this is kind of a huge topic, especially today when it's 20 below outside. A good way to know the insulation factor on your home is when on cold days, what you can do is on an exterior wall is you can put your hand on the bottom of the wall, feel how cold it is, and then do the same on the top. And if the top of the wall feels colder, it's kind of what happens to your insulation over time. It'll break down and fall in your wall cavities to the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
So heat rises, and now you don't have any insulation on the top. It's a extensive project to get your exterior walls insulated, because you got to find a cavity, but there are companies out there for that. But that's just another way to know, okay, where am I losing my energy? How can I make sure my home in 10 years doesn't run into an issue where now I have to do my entire house insulating? That's going to cost 5 times as much as it would if you could slowly do that process if your house is getting into that situation.
Mhm. I'm trying to think of what keeps people from doing these very sensible things. And I think part of it is they don't know who to turn to. They really don't know um, who they should consult or who they can hire. They don't know if they can get them. I think for all of us, there's always a little worry that contractors for any kind of work are going to be very slow and very unresponsive. And so it just kind of puts up all these barriers in people's minds. It's like, I've got to pay a lot of money. I don't know who to talk to. I don't know how long it's going to take. It's going to be a hassle. How can they deal with those kinds of problems that exist in the real world and prevent them from really doing something, taking action when they probably should?
And what is the science of getting estimates?
Yeah, that's more on a personal level. How I always look at something, if I'm unaware or I don't know or understand something and I seek a professional, the way that I know that they're a good person or somebody that I can trust or rely on to get the job done is the learning aspect. If you have a contractor or professional come to your house and you need them, hey, I'm having concerns with my windows, can you help me out? Well, if they educate you on the issues and why this is happening, that's a good indicator that they're not just out there to have you sign something and pay a bunch of money and have low expectations. It means that, hey, they can educate you so you can make the best decision on, do I feel like this is the right person, based on the education and knowledge that I have now from them. So it's more or less your own personal judgment, but based off of an education process of now you know more than you did going into it. And then you just have to be confident in the decision that you make and set the expectations clearly of understanding, this is what I expect to be done. Is this what's going to be done?
Piggybacking off of David's question, do you know of any reputable contractors besides your dad that could, help out the elderly in their home and someone they can trust because you trust them?
Yeah, there's a lot of great companies and people that I've met throughout my life that I would recommend. Construction's a very tough one because there's not so many people going into that industry now.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a shortage. So when that happens, you have a lot of good companies out there, but they also don't have as much resources to get to everyone. So their prices are going to be a little higher maybe, But that's the reality of things. And that's a question that you would have to ask yourself. Do I want to pay a little bit more to make sure this is done in a timely manner by a professional company, or do I want to take a risk of, choosing someone else? And with that being said, too, there's the other aspect of it of, people that are starting their own companies. How do they get a chance, right? So that's where you can benefit from, is on a newer company, where you really have to rely on your own judgment if they're the right ones, but you could also be helping them out and they could turn out to be great and amazing. So it's a little bit of searching, and yeah, if you know somebody that has had work done by them or other companies like that, that's great, because it's, hey, I've had the experience. This is, it gives you that relief of like, okay, I'm making the right decision.
Yes.
If you have a particular indoor or outdoor house maintenance question, is the internet a good place to find information if you're willing to go and do some research?
Mhm.
Yeah, for sure. The internet can be very useful. If you have minimal knowledge on something, the hardest thing with the internet is being able to ask the question in a way that not only the internet understands, but you understand as well. So if you ask me about technology on spaceships, like I don't even know how to word the question. I'll type like spaceship, and then, with the internet being so flooded with things, it might take you a week to find your answer. But um, having a professional come out and just seeing what they can do and what you can learn from them could help you maybe do the research from there, or be led in the right direction.
So Nick, do any horror stories come to mind of people who basically ignored all the advice you and the rest of us are giving here and paid a heavy price for that neglect?
Yeah, very much so, David. It seems like from my experience, I've met some people that, maybe get those bids, or maybe seek professional help. And then there's situations like, well, is it worth, who wants to spend $10,000 on repairing their home? Nobody wants to have to do that. What I've seemed to find is that they're just not educated enough in terms of, okay, what could happen with that leaky window we talked about earlier? Well, if you have a leaky window and you don't want to pay the money that it is to fix it, over time, what's going to happen is that $2,000 window that you neglected to fix the first time, 2 years later, I'm not scientist, I don't know exact timing, but water and wood don't mix. So what we find is that $2,000 window now, a year or two later, because of the damages, and you have to replace more things like structure around the home, that could lead into triple, quadruple, could much more cost. And then it's going to put you in a situation like we talked about earlier, to where, is it worth me to pay this extra $8,000 to save my house, or do I just sell it and then move?
Right.
So by having the preventative action, if you see something that isn't right, get educated on it, find somebody that you like and can work with that can do the job, and make sure it's in your budget. It's going to save you a lot of being forced. It's going to save you from being forced to a situation of selling your home, or not being able to afford it to fix up. And then the damage spreads from there.
Yeah. One thing that's, I think, helped us, because we still have a fair amount of deferred maintenance, but nothing that's catastrophic, but the home is not move-in ready. So I at least called one of those companies that will give you a cash offer on your home and you don't have to do anything. You can just walk out.
Mhm.
You don't even have to take the stuff out if you don't want to. And I just wanted a number to work with. So I had a kind of comparison of, well, what would they pay me if I just left this house as is, and then calculate how much I'm going to have to spend in order to kind of bring it up to where it should be. And I think that was helpful to know, to have that information in my back pocket so that I knew that there was an alternative if worse came to worse, which actually was not such a terrible option, uh, given the amount that they're willing to offer, which I thought was reasonable. So,
Mhm.
Well, if we have a minute or two, I do have a quick near disaster story. I was about 30 years old, living in a rented house with 3 or 4 other people. I came home one day from work, laid down on the sofa, went to sleep, opened my eyes, looked up. I saw like a band of smoke emerging from the wall. Within about 15 seconds, the smoke turned to fire. And I realized the house was catching on fire. So I just kind of yelled out a few things, and people got out of the house, and somebody called the fire department, and they at least saved the house. But, that was something I knew nothing, I had no idea it was going to happen, but it did. The house just in and of itself caught fire. So things can happen if you don't maintain them.
yeah.
That's so true.
Mm.
As someone, I'm sorry.
But I was just going to say, time is our enemy, just as time can mess up houses. Shows have to come to an end. But Rashida, in the last minute or so, anything you want to add or ask?
I just wanted to ask Nick, as someone who has parents that are retired living in their home, what would you suggest for our generation to help their parents, besides moving in and living in their basement?
Yeah, the best way would just be to spend some time with them of, okay, what are the struggles? We kind of talked about some of them in terms of safety railings. The next thing is like the wiring, preventing a fire. You don't want somebody that's getting older to have to scurry out of their house because of a fire. So those types of things, even like bathrooms, bathtubs where there's water on the floor, slippery things, update those.
Okay, well, Nick Feldewerd, I'm sorry to say we're out of time. You were a delightful source of helpful information today, and thank you for that. Mike Rosberg, thank you for being our co-host, and Rashida Jenk, thank you as well. But we have reached our ending point for this edition of Generations, and so thank you all for watching, and we hope to see